Hey there, how'd it go?
Good. Seems we're on. We're doing
Yeah,
good so far.
yeah, we're not live, so just,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, sorry if it gave you trouble.
No, it's no big deal. Good to see you.
Okay, good to see you too. Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything off limits?
No,
I didn't think so.
no.
I didn't think so. I was,
If anything was, I would just not answer. But yeah, you go for
okay,
it. Shoot from the hip.
all right. I thought about it and I was like, I don't even know where to begin. I was like, you have a lot of great stuff to talk about, so get rid of this. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm gonna minimize you and do my intro thing and then bring you back on.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, all right, hold on this. Okay. She kills me. Okay, hold on. Good evening and welcome to Night Caller's Bigfoot Radio. You're here with your hostess, Lauren Smith, and tonight we have Robert Kryder on, who is a treasure hunter and I want to say a man of mystery. He covers so many different mysterious topics and just so many topics. He's very versatile. So I'm going to call him a treasure hunter and man of mystery. Don't forget to subscribe if you are watching and hit that thumbs up and drop a comment down below to let me know what you think of the show. Also, I have my moderators in chat as usual, so if you have a question for myself or for Robert, please type it in all caps and my moderators will get it to me. Again, please don't forget to subscribe. Also, I'll be dropping links to Robert's different social media platforms and website. Please go check them out. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Robert back on. Hi, Robert. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's this time change, it's just it's not necessary. It's just useless to me. So I'm,
Right.
Doing the time change struggle this week where I'm tired at like 5 p.m. every
Mm-hmm.
day. So you know
Yeah,
how it
I
goes.
hear you. Yeah, it was a run just to get off and run over here and jump on here. So, and I
Yeah.
find myself waking up an hour before I need to in the morning right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Although I do use it because I'm not an early bird. I'm not an early riser. I hate it. And so this time of year, every year I try to use this time change to get used to waking up earlier, and it works for a month, maybe or so.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. You have a very diverse interests. You have diverse interests. Let's put it that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at, I've had you on before.
Mm-hmm.
It was back in the day, but we've had you on before. You've done a lot since then. Your YouTube is amazing. I mean, you have, I think, almost 10,000 subscribers now, is what I
Mm-hmm.
saw the other day.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's pretty phenomenal. You have a huge fan base.
Thank you.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, considering how often our subscribers write us and say, I was unsubscribed again. It's like been the 10th or
Yeah.
15th time. So, yeah, we're growing in spite
Yeah.
of that, which I'm pretty proud of. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that post also. That's very frustrating. I've had a lot of people, a lot of channels, and it seems like I'm just going to go ahead and put my foil hat on tonight. It seems like a lot of the more conspiracy related or, high strange channels are the ones that get hit with the subscriber drop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Very frustrating. I watched my numbers fluctuate, and I just thought, well, I don't put out shows every week like I used to, so that's why. Until I started
Right.
seeing all these other channels. Hey, make sure you're subscribed because they unsubscribed me, and I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's
usually the
frustrating.
best ones are the ones that start ringing the truth a little too often. I think they're the
Yes.
heaviest controlled. So, seems to
Well, that's good. That makes me feel good about my channel that,
be.
maybe I'm getting too close there and losing subscribers.
Well, that's what they say. The one out front gets the most arrows in the back.
That's true. That's a really great quote to use in this situation. It sucks though. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in time a little bit, and you, like I said, you have such a diverse set of topics that you cover. How did you get into being a treasure hunter or being interested in all these things that you're interested in?
Well, I think that it was a reflection on a lot of it. My early years had a lot of high strangeness ever since I was born. And then the family, we homesteaded a lot of New Mexico, thousands of acres at one time, very early on, and there was just a lot of odd stuff in the mix the entire time. So I was hearing stories and things like that, and of course, then I witnessed a lot of odd things as a real young child, some UFOs and things. And then we used to go up into Upper Canada when I was like 4 and 5, and real remote lakes that normally you had to get a float plane to get into. And so I've heard tree falls up there, and we heard the stories. And I still have a carved Bigfoot head from like when I was like 2, and we were up there. It was like 1967 or something. And so it's been long and ongoing. And then as when I got into school, though, in my school years, even early on, I think just by the first grade, I expected to see things in school. I was looking forward to learning about these things I'd heard about my whole life, and all the oddness and the real grand things and things of wonder, right? And then of course that didn't come, and that didn't come, and I knew early on. I felt it right away because I was asking my teachers about the weirdness and weird stuff, and it was just scoffed immediately. And so I made a little young vow, even as a tiny child. I wanted to know what was going on, and I didn't want to be lied to. I wanted truth. And so it just went on and on. And then as I grew older and older, that really set in deeper and deeper, because as through the years, these things not only were less talked about or less fantasized about, I guess it became ludicrous to even go there. And by the time I was even 10 or 11, I think In Search Of came out, and they had their show on Bigfoot and whatnot, and it was then being described as this myth and a single creature out there, almost like the werewolf, or for better yet than I'd say that, even because there are a lot of incredible dogman stuff going on. But I believe that it was characterized as a mythical monster, let's put it that way, by 75.
Right.
And that kind of sank in, because my reality that I knew about it before that, it wasn't really characterized that way. It was characterized as something out there we need to take a look at, or that everyone knew was there, and it just hadn't been found yet. And then through the years, of course, going up, I was always into truth, of course, and I was always into the alien stuff and whatnot, because of Eric von Daniken and Chariots of the Gods, and then Gold of the Gods books. I was exposed to those very early, and then like the Betty and Barney Hill case, early abduction. I was exposed to that stuff early, and we had some of that stuff going on in our early settler family here in New Mexico and in Texas and in Oklahoma. And there were stories in the family of encountering odd beings and seeing craft and everything. And I had one aunt that used to draw a lot, so I think just subconsciously it all came in that this thing was going on collectively out there, and there was just no truth to the story. And I'm just the type of personality that's where I swung. And so everything I did on the side, I mean, I've worked some real high end technical jobs. I've worked in management of different sorts, even including restaurants and tire shops and whatever else. And so I've always been kind of in a leadership role. But in the early 90s, I began to do kind of more serious exploration work. And I would say actually in like 89, I found Coronado's lost winter home and a bunch of stuff in the middle of the Arizona desert. And that's where I really got my feet into going extremely rugged, difficult places, and began to find the best things in those places. So I turned into a guide and used to guide some of the geologists from Arizona State, the Mineral Museum there down in Arizona, ASU, and some other guys. So I began to get in with some scientists and professional aspects and more historians and this and that. It just kind of evolved. But through all that time is how I got to personal experience with a lot of the high strangeness and the Bigfoot and all that, so.
Well, that resonates with me. I grew up weird too.
Right.
Paranormal, UFOs, all of that, and then eventually Bigfoot. And unlike you, though, I knew it was taboo, and so I didn't talk about any of that in school. And even in my adult years, at work, I didn't tell anybody I was a Bigfoot researcher and had this great podcast. I didn't tell anybody that until after Finding Bigfoot came out, and a few years later I finally started really letting my I'm gonna say my freak flag fly, like just being weird and embracing my weirdness. So good
And
for you.
it was similar to that the entire time too, because we didn't treasure hunt and do all history stuff on kind of a hobby level. We worked with a lot of academics, and we worked with the government.
Right.
We worked with even police forces and things, doing underground scanning for them and a lot of stuff. So I couldn't share any of the weirdness throughout my entire time with that. With most
Mm-hmm.
people, of course, the guys on my crew and on my team, we experienced about everything you can imagine, but nothing was really, we never advertised or blasted that. And then when the internet came about, I saw what was out there for Bigfoot just frustrated me immediately, because we had been experiencing them often, and they're not a strange thing. We had experienced them a lot in many different aspects, being in so many locations for such great periods of time. I stayed in one place for 8 months in a tent, never left, and a real remote area, and there was one there. So you're talking every day, every day, every day, every day,
Mm-hmm.
experiences with them. And so when I got on the online and began to see what was out there, and I say this often, it's kind of my way of saying it, because a lot of people felt the same way, I believe, and a lot thought it was funny. But best I could find was just the internet was pummeled with videos like Bigfoot on a quad eating an ice cream. And I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
see, and I thought, with all this advent of there's digital cams out there, everybody's got a camera in there, and even back there in the early days of the internet, um, it was still totally different than it was before. I mean, if you were carrying a camera, it was probably a box camera, because if you had anything else modern to date, it wasn't durable and whatnot. So with that, I thought, wow, we'd really see, by the time I hit YouTube, I thought, wow, we'd really see all this wild stuff, and there just wasn't. And so at that time, we were actually just kind of coincidentally involved with Bigfoot activity, new in an area, and it was happening locally at the house we rented. And so it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of went on from there. And that same location, of course, we also did a major treasure recovery, or attempted recovery there. So it's always been tied together. It's hard to separate.
That's fascinating to me. I do know I have a good friend that he goes gold mining,
Mm-hmm.
and he lures his friends out there to look for Bigfoot. He'll say, "Oh, I heard of this great place. There's been encounters," but really he wants to go
Mm-hmm.
pan, and the rest of us get lured out there to go find Bigfoot. So,
Nice.
it's unfortunate, or fortunately, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
treasure or precious metals or whatever are not near civilization, and that's where Bigfoot also resides, not near civilization sometimes. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, a few of my guys even asked me, and collectively at one time, what are we doing? Because they said,
yeah,
Bigfoot, are you serious? This is what we're doing now? And I said, yeah, man. So,
yeah, yeah, and then they have that experience, and then they're like, "Oh crap, like
oh,
this
yeah.
is real."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so can you tell me kind of your most impactful Bigfoot experience?
Waking the Giant, that's a situation, I call it, and it's a video and stuff, but not just a title. It's just what I regard the situation. So I woke up a very, very large male in the early afternoon. Might have been before 12. It was somewhere in that, though. And I apparently woke it up because I got within 57 feet of it with no obstruction except what it was laying beneath, which was some overhanging branches of Russian olive trees. And that one, I think, because I was alone, we'd already seen his prints the day before. We've been listening to him and vicariously getting to know him, but never saw a sign of him for like 6 years. And out of
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of trips and down there and everything, but everybody else in the unit we did. And then, yeah, to go in there alone the next day, just trying to find a good print from the day before that I could cast, and then ran into him. Yeah, that was probably the worst. Um, yeah, at that distance, you know, um, you'd think that's 57 feet. That's quite a ways away. Trust me, it's not far enough. Not with one that size. So, and he left 23-inch prints, and I was photographing the prints while he was still breaking things.
Mm-hmm.
So and I stayed in there for about an hour and 45 minutes, and he had one or two other smaller subjects. I mean, he was absolutely monstrous. Matter of fact, when he first rolled over and got up, because he was laying horizontal, and I just saw a huge dark patch, just a big dark section. I thought it was maybe flood
Mm-hmm.
debris or something like that. And he rolled over, but he did so in such an explosive manner when I spooked him, and he became aware of my presence, that it really just about put me in shock. And I say the only way I can explain it is my bottom half tried to run, and my torso and mind were doing everything they could to keep my legs there. And then
Yeah.
I literally had to look and see if I was urinating myself, and because it was really that big and that bad. I mean, it's like mass way beyond a Brahma bull or a horse or something like that, way beyond that, and three
Mm-hmm.
times faster than you've ever seen one move. You know, it was like the
Mm-hmm.
explosiveness of a big reptile, like crocodile or something. It was just horrendous.
What did you get a good look at the face? Did you get any eye contact, or was it just movement and you know exactly what it was, but
No,
there wasn't?
I saw the whole shape go from horizontal to. I mean, he didn't have anything behind him dark. He was the only dark thing under there, and so and it wasn't. You know, it was close. So I saw his entire mass go from horizontal up to on quad on all fours, and on all fours he was about 6 foot tall. So and he just barely fit in the cavity beneath the foliage, and the foliage wasn't that dense, so I could see the entire form. It just had some brighter leaves in the sunlight in front of him, and then he went sideways into a little heavier brush, but not he didn't leave that spot, and not for I don't know, not until I actually looked sideways that one started to walk to my left, and I panned the camera over there, and it wasn't near as big or heavy, and it was just walking. You could tell it was biped, just being quiet walking. And so I turned my attention there, and when I turned my attention back on the big one, then he bolted. And then when he bolted, I got to see the whole, you know, a good from here down, you know, run through, because the leaves below that were pretty sparse. And he ran through and ran to my left, and then the other one, I guess they went around and joined back up, circled around, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I got to see him pretty good there. And then when I followed him in eventually, I went where the little one was, trying to see if he was around there somewhere. I could get just a glimpse,
Mm-hmm.
and I really thought I would, and he ghosted me. And then so I went back around to where the big one was laying and saw the damage from him. And you know, one of the things I saw that was most impactful was a push where he took a he was on quad, and he changed his direction just 90 degrees, and when he did, he broke the surface of the ground out. And where we live, there's no like loam and roots and stuff in most of the ground. It's just really hard packed red earth, and you can
Mm-hmm.
kick it as hard as you want. You can't dent it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you dig it with a claw hammer, it's still hard. It's that hard. And he broke out a section and displaced a section of crust, you know, that was probably 8 to 10 or 12 inches wide, and then his heel dug down through that, and then it did it probably dug in 6 inches or more altogether, and then but the heel was real apparent. It was 6 inches wide at the heel, but that was so impactful because horses and cattle and stuff can go all over that country and they scuff it, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't ever break it out. And he just literally just smashed the crust of the ground out. And then a few minutes after that, I was around back there with him, and he was breaking stuff, and I raised my arm up with the camera as high as I could above the foliage there, and in the video you can see he raises up and looks at the camera, but he only exposes as little as he can,
Mm-hmm.
and so you get the top of the head and the eyes and the nose, and but it is what it is with the camera of the day. So you know, it's still supposed to be
Yeah.
1080i zoom camera or whatever, but still not as great as it
Right.
should have been. And then I did poke my SLR up and get a shot of the other subject, but he's back behind a lot of stuff too. He's clear, but he's back behind quite a bit of foliage.
Yeah. It's they know
Oh yeah,
exactly how to look at you and where to go to not be fully
yeah, expose himself, huh?
there you go.
There you
I was
go.
gonna say photographable
Yeah,
because words. I'm telling you, time change. My brain stops working.
I like it.
Um.
Well, just invent them. It just invent them as you go. We're good.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm very good at that. I make up words all the time. So there was a question from the chat, and I had the same question. Um. Was there any odor or musk that he gave off being that close, or did you smell anything before or after that?
No, not at all. But it's not uncommon where we're at. Everything's. I mean, we have rain and all that, but we just don't have enough humidity. I think for that really condition to exist. It's like people the same way. You just in a lot of places you go, it's like and people are very odoriferous, and
Mm-hmm.
and they just not here. Now we have smelled them before, but it's been
Mm-hmm.
real close proximity and just really have an air movement, so downwind in real close
Yeah.
proximity. But they don't usually ever get um, downwind of you if they're conscious and doing their thing.
Yeah.
Um, but no, not that encounter. I certainly did. And we have smelled them before, but not that one. I didn't know.
Okay. when Squatch and Holler wants to know, when he was on all fours, did the whole foot touch the ground or just the ball, or were you able to see that?
Well, when he was quad, he was just touching
Yeah.
basically the great toe, the next toe, maybe the next two toes, and the ball, which would be the back of the first metatarsal there. That's all he was really contacting the ground when he was on all fours. Then, because you didn't have full printing, you had a lot of press marks, um,
Yeah.
from fingertips and the side of the hand, and which wasn't doing a whole lot, and in that material. And then, but when he planted, he just contacted the full heel and about, from the pinky bone, the pinky toe, that bone below it's called the fifth metatarsal. So about that, almost that whole fifth metatarsal and the entire heel when he turned and went that back that direction, or turned back to his right. So
Okay.
that's all that pressed in. Yeah. Now when he put his
Yeah.
foot down and I got the 23-inch print, he had gone bipedal, and
Right.
that put a lot more weight down, and he left two really good prints, and those are full on prints.
Yeah. So I've always had a theory that usually when you have a sighting, or a multiple subject sighting, it's a distraction. Not always, of
Sure.
course, but like in this situation, did you feel like this one over here was causing a distraction so that one could get away?
Um, Not necessarily, no, because it was all reactive. Everything was
Mhm.
reactive. So they didn't know I was there until I brushed the big one. And I guess I had already encountered where they had taken a deer. And so I knew there was recent activity, and I knew it could be the big one's still in there. But and a couple others, but it was in there a lot with that group. So, and I was able to get with them quite a bit, without them knowing I had come in yet. If I'm all by myself, and I'm not speaking or anything the entire time, and I'm just moving slow and I sometimes would actually run into the group. So, but this was different because I guess I made a noise or whatever I did. I was already close enough in, and then they're not in a big zone of real heavy cover at all. Matter of fact, there was nothing in between the little dirt pile I was standing on and it. So everything from that point forward was fully reactive. But when I was on the other side of all the brush and trees, and there was actually a big dirt bank behind me, so I didn't have anywhere to go when I went through there to where they had gone. And but they circled right back to either one or two. It sounded like two. And the next day we found sign from three. That's why I said I don't know who all was there that day, but there was at least two, and it had flanked right back around where I came through, and it was kind of making passes. And I think it was just getting looks at me. And we're real familiar with who that subject was because the next day, of course, we tracked all that. And but he acted a lot different that day than the previous day. Because I mean, even when I was trying to get a view, I stayed in there trying to crawl in there and get my arm somewhere where I could get a look at one of them. But every time I would go to this back point and there was kind of a pinch point, they would meet me there, and or one of them would. And I didn't know if it was the big one or little one. And the next day, of course, found out it was the smaller one, which is still really big. He's got like a 15-inch
Yeah.
foot. He's really big. So he's like 7 feet or something. But instead of moving away from me when we'd get to that spot, instead of doing this cat and mouse thing at the edge there, I would hear him come around and meet me there, and it just got to be too boisterous. So everyone knew where everybody was because they were being loud and breaking huge crap, but they were all together right there. So, but I have
Yeah.
experienced that. I teach all my teams that if you hear a twig snap, somebody's going to look 180 degrees of the twig
Yeah.
snap, because that's generally they need to get a look at you. They feel
Yeah.
insecure if they can't, whatever. They need to assess somebody's going to peek, and we found that's how they pull it off.
Yeah, I've also said that. I've had things thrown at me. Like if I'm looking on thermal, I've had things on the ground or in a tree looking at me, and a rock will be thrown near me or a twig will snap behind me, and I'll look away, of course, and look back, and it's gone. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they are masters of distraction. Um, have you ever felt threatened in the woods? Like it just got to be too uncomfortable, or you were besides the him startling him and having to check and see if you wet your pants, because
Right, that's pretty bad, right? You'd think that would answer that question, but there's been other times. Well, even that day at the end, what really ended everything, it was becoming, late enough in the day I didn't want to be there anymore, and by the time, like, he grunted at me, at one point, and it was a grunt that I've just had enough of you. and
Yeah.
I absolutely left. I didn't stay there anymore. So, but
Yeah.
no, during when we did the University of New Mexico field study for them, yeah, I got in amongst a group, and it was pretty friendly. Everything was pretty cool. Everybody was real close proximity, and then there was just one juvenile actually that was the scary part because he was moving a lot and nervous and on quad, going back in and out of the roadway in the moonlight, and eventually he come up and threw a rock at us. And I mean, it could have killed somebody. It threw it that hard. It was just like sidearm like a baseball, and it was like a pound and a half rock. So, and it just missed my buddy Junebug. He's a little Navajo, and he's good in the field and everything, and he just instinctually, I guess, when it had come up, um, one time he tries to pull his knife, and I push it back into his sheath on the video, tell him don't do that, and then it kept so. But when he got nervous and kind of raised up, and when he did, it just went right under him and then hit me. And if it had hit him in the shoulder, busted his arm. If it had hit him in the head, we'd probably been airlifting him out of there. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was pretty intimidating. I mean, and the rock hit me. I actually caught it right there in my almost my stomach, and I was real lucky it didn't hurt me worse. And I grabbed it and I kind of got jerked off. I told him I could throw this rock back at you and it'll hurt too, and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But then Eyeshine comes out on the camera. We watched three big dark shapes come out in the road and come at us, and we're still half laughing out of the excitement, backing up. It was pretty turn on, and
Yeah.
so, but it was intimidating because they came out and they didn't take that as a joke. When I stood up, it was like, you don't even act like that, little boy. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing is like I always tell people, because they're like, oh, they were rock throwing and it was so scary, and I'm like, if they wanted to hit you, they would, they
mhm.
could. It's not like they're a bunch of
No,
5-year-old girls out there throwing baseballs like this. They could hit you if
they
they
hit
wanted
whatever
to.
they
They're
want.
trying to scare you off. Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of
So
fact, it really caused, and that one was a young one. It wasn't near as big as the others that were there. And it's just, and no, it's almost like they're allowed to do whatever the heck they want, which I thought was kind of wrong.
yeah.
Because, we're all doing good here. We're all jiving. Anybody could leave if
Yeah.
they want to. Nobody's leaving. And the little kid comes out and throws a rock. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're kind of honestly the apex predator, so
Yeah. And that
they
was
can
just
really
it.
do what they want.
He was on all fours and chucked that. And it's still
Yeah.
his eyes on all fours, even all spread out sideways, like 3 feet off the ground. So he's still pretty
Yeah.
good size. But I couldn't believe the
Yeah.
force or the
Yeah.
speed at which it came in. A human's just not. You got to have a little more throw than that to do that. I mean, it was just like that, and
Yeah.
bam. So,
It's the musculature of these creatures. They honest to God have muscles in places we don't, to be able to move as quick
oh yeah,
as they do. It's preternatural.
yeah.
It's
Just
not
like a
it's
giant.
not
You think that things change when they scale up. That's why I said when the big one flipped over, it literally almost put me in shock because your brain can't. It just doesn't contemplate mass accelerating that fast. Of course,
yeah.
and the sound of it. So from
Hmm.
the sound of impact on the ground to all the foliage, and I go in there and wow, it's not that much damage. It sounded like a truck wrecked through there. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable what it sounded like. So
Well, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Everybody take note. Be glad they're throwing rocks and not poop.
yeah,
All right.
right, just like yeah,
Yeah.
like they do in the
Can you
zoo,
imagine?
right?
We've been having some Jeff Goldblum moments. Like that's a big pile of.
Oh no, I'm not
Um.
going there.
All right. So we had. Let me see if we had any more questions. Um. Kenneth Collins said UFO. They're alien in a way. Eye shine portals and such. What do you think of that kind of stuff in the Bigfoot world?
I don't think it's really any different than the rest of the world, to be honest with you. I've been involved in so much for so long, not just one avenue. We've seen the same type of stuff across the board with everything. So I've actually heard of, so many people that have been involved with random portal events, including my mentor Jerry Gray early on. Walked into a spot, he said everything got blurry. It felt like he was walking, trying to move through honey, or it was so thick. And then he came, half a second, whatever second. It wasn't very long, but when he came out, it was he was a quarter mile from where he stepped in it in the Arizona desert, and his feet print stopped and started over there. So there was something he didn't control it. It wasn't anything he planned. He doesn't know. We never knew what did it, what happened to him. And then when we see like Bigfoot tracks in the snow, they vanish and things like that. Seen the same thing with cattle, deer, and people. So there's been missing people where searchers have found tracks leading to nothing in an open snowy field where it's just covered in snow, tracks gone. And so we've seen that with animals, humans, and Bigfoot. But a lot of people adjust even events like that to, well, they must have either been beamed me up, Scotty, or stepped off world or into another reality, between realities, whatever it may be. And I don't necessarily go there because I don't necessarily believe that the people that has occurred to were part of that, or the event, or the deer, or the cattle were part of that event. I think that they and the Bigfoot are all victims of the same, whatever it is that's doing this, whether it be the same culprit, the same whatever, the same phenomena that's occurring. I think that they're right along with us as victims of that as well. I don't necessarily make that attachment verbatim. And then, a lot of people have taken, when it's said by the native cultures, you walk in two worlds, but the native cultures knew of the physical world and the spirit world, and we're well aware of that. In the spirit world, we're already a part of that world, where that's a part of who we are as well. And what is it when a person astral travels, let's say? Are they walking in two worlds? They are. They're walking in the physical realm. They're walking in the other realm. Now, astral traveling and remote viewing and all that has been completely scientifically 100% proven. There's something there. And some really wild experiments with the astral traveling stuff to prove it. And I believe, and I've also seen where the manifestation of human energy has shown up during those experiments as a sphere, as a foggy sphere of light. And I can't help but wonder that at the same time, when we see orbs and associate orbs with Bigfoot, well, maybe that's the family walking in two worlds with whoever the sentinel is, or whoever that's going to go out and take a look at you. That's a scary thing to them. That's almost like going to war. So you can imagine that they would want to be accompanied by their loved ones. And maybe that's what we're witnessing, is the orbs are the accompanying energy of the others in the group, astro traveling with them.
You're right.
Because you can have 5 orbs hanging around a Bigfoot in the woods. And it's like, what is all this? Or one, or it's, and so we've been to tie them together in strange ways. But I think if we just step back a little bit, and I think there's a simpler view. I think walking in two worlds is astro traveling, and I think they can do it at will. I think if they want to come visit your camp, when they do this, we all feel the same way, I believe, that they know we're there when we're there, right? Well, I've known my native buds and cowboys and stuff that could do the same thing. They'd know when people were coming. We'd live 2 or 3, 4 hours out in places, and they would know someone was coming 45 minutes before they'd show up. You've seen a dog going crazy before the master's coming home, not even at a normal time. And the people say, well, they hear their car. Man, they do this when they're in the suburbs in LA. The car's still on the freeway and there's a million cars around it. They're not hearing that. So I think that that's what it really is. I think that before we step off into too big of a realm, I think that taking the simple view, and I think knowing that these things really are real, they're not paranormal to me. They're part of the normal reality of living species. And I think that they're experiencing and part of that same thing. So.
Okay. I think that's a great answer. They're subject to the same paranormal phenomena that we are.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, people have literally transported from one place to another, and that's been recorded. So a preacher in Russia preached 2,000 miles away, went 2,000 miles away to preach every single day, and he was documented in both locations every day. And it's just one of those things. I mean, lab animals have disappeared from containers, even things as simple as salamanders, not like something that Pete is in there rescuing or anything like that. I mean, just literally, you've got a Tupperware tub with a salamander in it, and he's gone. It's like, and if you're in a lab, I mean, it didn't go away, So there's things like that have occurred. So who knows?
I'm gonna lose subscribers after this show, not because they don't like the topic, but because we probably got too close to the truth at one point. I can feel it.
it doesn't really degrade anything else. I mean,
no,
everything has to fit. So if you have a single reason for an event that we've entertained, and we may have even completely become loyal to that, if it is, it will neatly fit into the puzzle. It won't have to be force fit into a puzzle.
Right.
And so if you then need to make other things that don't easily fit to justify the one thing, well, then you might still be on track, but it might be a little off. So
Right.
I tend to do things that fit, and I know, like I said, I've had experience with everything from aliens to UFOs. I mean, physically aliens within close proximity and things like this for decades, and only a couple times, but it's gone on. And it's, for one, it's not as flamboyant as anyone would want to describe, and two, it's matter of fact as anything you can imagine, right? And it tends to be everything we experience really in reality tends to be that way. It's
Right.
it's not fanciful when it's standing there. It's very real, and it seems to be as just as much a part of the real world, even ghosts, as anything else. It's like they still have limitation, and you can tell that there's still limits and boundaries, and we all are living in this realm, all kind of moving through it and fighting to do what we're doing. And so I experience that with all of it, I guess. And I don't mean to scoff at anybody's belief systems whatsoever. I just try to
Yeah.
bring what we've seen through observation with the simplest answer. So
No, I agree. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
yeah, exactly.
um, we had another question from Greg. He said, "Hey guys, have either one of you ever heard of a confirmed Sasquatch hospitalization that you can personally confirm? Thank you." I'm assuming, you know what they say about that, but I'm assuming he means that someone was hospitalized due to a Sasquatch encounter.
Or potentially an injured Sasquatch coming up somewhere and ended up in a hospital. Um,
Yeah, you know.
and now I have heard rumors of that second thing. So I've heard, but I'm not nothing in detail whatsoever. But about hospital or some medical facility being used to treat an injured subject. And then the only thing close to that that I've ever heard of from a reputable source was about a young Bigfoot, very young, being literally dropped off at these old people's place way up in the mountains, being set on the porch, and the female leaving and not coming back. And they called Department of that in their region. The people to call was Department of Natural Resources, and they did that, and they came out and removed and picked it up and took it away. So
Hmm.
that's the closest I've ever heard to anything like that.
On the flip side, and Lori could probably help me out with this because I was very young, but there used to be a gentleman that would join in the Bigfoot chat room on Pal Talk, and his name was Dallas. I don't remember his last name, but he allegedly had been attacked by a Bigfoot. And the Bigfoot basically had slammed him into a tree, and
Mm-hmm.
he had head trauma from it. And after that, he wasn't quite functioning on all
Yeah.
mental faculties. And so I don't know whatever happened to him. And like I said, I don't remember his last name. And I'm sure Lori can remember it. But that is one of the only people that I've ever spoken to that has had an aggressive
Right.
physical encounter with a
Now,
Sasquatch.
I see that comment come up, and he clarified himself that he meant a person. And yes, I've heard of a lot of incidents that don't get publicized that are probably likely to Sasquatch or to Bigfoot. But
Yeah.
I've heard a couple that I know were directly related. And one was a woman was put in the hospital on a parking lot who got hit by a basketball sized rock in the head at a trailhead. And it wasn't
My
near anywhere it
goodness.
could roll off the mountain or anything like that. It was out across the road, blah, 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 down in the parking lot. And she had just get in her car in the evening, took a rock to the side of the head, and she went into intensive care. And then another one was when we were in our area we call the kill zone, of all things. We were in there in wintertime trying to access this area, this site that's in there, and we found a blood trail coming out where somebody had been really wounded bad. And by the fluid they were dripping, it looked like potentially a head wound or maybe abdomen, but they put out too much fluid. And so we actually had tracked them for a couple miles, and eventually they were either inaccessible between that point to where we could get to them because it was already nighttime, or they had made it. And so we had to go even backtrack those couple miles at night, and we're at 10,000 foot elevation. There's 3 feet of snow. It was frozen. Luckily, all the snow was frozen because we actually took mountain bikes in there, and we had
Yeah.
dropped bikes when we found their trail. So we had to go back and do this big, huge loop. And when we got back down, we reported it, and like the rangers didn't even want anything to do about it. But I guess what had happened was that I found it from someone else that they airlifted those people off the mountain about 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oh
and
my gosh.
they were in an area where we would expect that type of thing to happen. I mean, that trail, 30 people in a year has gone missing off that trail, so it's really
Well,
bad.
I have to say, with my children being who they are, we had to. We've had many medical emergency in the woods, so I always think, oh, I'm like, whoever it is must be like my child.
Right.
We that child. We had to get him to the ER this summer, actually, twice. He had a facial trauma at the skate park, but then less than a month later, he was jumping from one boulder to the other, missed the second boulder and fell backwards, busted his head open to the skull, and I had to basically hold his head the whole way to the hospital. It was utterly terrifying. And so when I think of that situation of somebody coming out covered in blood, I'm like, oh, they must be like my child. And
Right.
you know,
Right.
no sense of self-preservation, all out or get out. You know how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, this was pretty concerning. There was a man and a woman apparently, and you could tell when he would take breaks and things what was going on, and yeah, it didn't look good. Really didn't look good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you my standard question a little bit early, because I think your answer will take us into what I've been waiting to ask. What do you think is keeping us from getting this mystery solved officially?
On the media.
The media?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's being done. And the format and the expression, there's also a concerted effort to keep things just off of focus and or to lead them as far astray as you can get them.
Right.
There's two little ways of doing this that are outside the straight and narrow, and those are both happening. And then of course there's no resource to tell people. The work's been done, and it's being done all the time, and it's prolific. You could prove the case anywhere. We almost ended up in court with it, and we would have probably got that pulled off. And then of course they dropped everything, and big charges. Fraud by executive director of the University of New Mexico Gallup for conducting the study we did. And there was a big pro that was instrumental in misplacing all the DNA and physical evidence gained during the study, and so they immediately attacked him for fraud, and were charging him with fraud, so taxpayer fraud.
Yeah.
And which was going to be pretty damn big charges and things. And so, and we were actually kind of looking forward to it because I still had a bunch of the physical evidence and the entire year-long study data to go with it, and we were going to present all that in court because the whole charge was it was fraud. There was nothing gleaned. It was a mythical creature. So then the answer would have been, is it mythical or not? So
Right.
which would have been great. We were like, good, let's do it. And then they dropped all the charges. So it's hard. It's really hard to go and push through. It just, everyone can think all kind of conspiratorial thoughts, and they're probably right on some of them. But really, it just stems down to a couple aspects of why we're not hearing it and why it's so tough. And that is, for one, the accountability and liability of all the agencies throughout all the decades that have told you it's not out there, confidently told you it's full of crap. So we're either going to place them in one of two brackets if they ever do admit it, or if we ever catch them and make them. And that's going to be, it's going to be incompetency or dishonesty. They either lied about it or they didn't know. And with their resources that they have, if they didn't know, they were incompetent. So at best. So
I feel like they kind of did that with aliens, though. They said
Sure.
it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. And then they came out and said it was real. And they used the media to groom us, UFO sighting, and then all of a sudden it's real. And they used the media to come out with it.
And it's funny even how they did that, because a year before this come out thing, the Pentagon said, yeah, we have materials that were not, metamaterials that were not made on this earth. Well, that was like a year before they supposedly came out, and that was a public release of information. But nobody put two and two together. If they had materials not made on this earth, well, they weren't made by us, and how'd you get them? It's like, well, that was the admission back then, but I guess nobody noticed. So then they needed a big whistleblower to actually spell it out for the people. Here's what we're telling. Yeah, I know. And even when this comes out, when it does, it's going to be, well, we knew all the time, but professionally we hadn't done this, we hadn't done that, so it's not. We don't make that, and it'll be a save face moment. It's just going to be a big one. And the other aspects to that, there's economic aspects to that too. It's not just the liability and culpability or anything like that. It's just that there's impacts across the board, whether it's socioeconomic or religious or whatever it is, that just make waves. And
Hmm.
when you make waves, people aren't calm and productive. People tend
Yeah.
to ride that wave, and man, that's not good for anybody. It's like, it's
They're
not
not
good.
as easily manipulated the next time
Yeah,
you want to not come out with something.
yeah, it's not good for credit agencies. It's not good for anybody else, I guess.
Well said. Very well said and well answered, I will say. Um, I tell people all the time because they're like, "Do you think it's going to take a body?" And I'm like, "No, I think
Yeah,
it's going to take the government letting a body be shown."
yeah,
I think there have been plenty of bodies. Do I think that they have been allowed to be shown on the media or to anybody? Have they been suppressed? Yes. So,
absolutely. Yeah, who wants to open that can of worms? That's remember all the people. Our agency isn't an agency. It's nothing. It's not a big monster with a bunch of tendrils. It's just people. And it's just this guy and this guy and this guy who just want to go home and don't upset my day. I'm not about to get tied up in all that, each individually. So who wants to go there? None of them want to go there.
yeah.
That's just.
Yeah. I think the government's fully aware of Bigfoot and they just do not want
Mm.
us to have anything to do with that. One more from Kenneth Collins. He said, "Hey Rob, talk about your invention and have you heard them chatter?"
Yeah, and hi Ken. By the way, I'm a big follower of your stuff. You and I have so many similar print castings and a little family group together. I think it's really cool. Um, Yeah, so invention wise, I believe you're talking about the KXPD3 parabolic mic I built. It's actually a hemispherical mic. It's not a true parabola. But nobody would know it was if I said that. So, um, but yeah, I was able to put together a thought process and get a secret or two that allowed a very small unit to have, a great impact. And I guess as people do want to hear about it, I guess I never ever pump my stuff. I've never done it there in any cast at all. Um, but yeah, so a 27-inch Kohler parabolic dish will pick up a human voice at 900 feet, and we can pick up a human voice over a mile. And
Oh,
so with
wow.
a 12-inch dish, and you can throw it out of the car doing 30 down the highway, and it's going to bounce and not do anything to it. So um, so we really went kind of another level. And then right now I'm actually dealing with a couple of distributors go to the military and things like that who want that tech in their hands. So they're talking to me now about developing bigger systems around that, which just blows my mind because Boyd Omer, I always give him the shout out no matter what, because he's the guy who inspired me to do it at another level. I was building these dishes and stuff for years before this and never really took it to that scale. And when I did it with Boyd's, I went ahead and wanted to do something special. So I figured out my own theory. It's based kind of how animals' ears work. You look at the form of an animal ear and it's covered in fur. It's got little fuzz all over it. It's got little ripples,
Mm-hmm.
but yet it outperforms anything you can do and it sounds perfect. So there's a reason for that. And so I just kind of gained access to that reason and I put the unit together. And so I made them available. I think there's only something like 65 of them out there right now. Um, and so far, everybody's just, ecstatic. We've heard not just chatter, but arguments. We've heard all kinds of stuff. I mean, we've heard two subjects arguing, and they were probably, I don't know, well, the river was 2 miles away where they should have been, but they were yelling, and it sounded like two of them were just going off at each other, high speed monkey rushing. That's what I call it, and so they were tearing up, and then another one, you could hear it was quite a bit of distance away, or at least it was out of the focal point of the mic. And another one interjects and screams something all crazy, and they both just shut up there because they were just talking over top of each other, going back and forth the way people do,
Mm-hmm.
cutting each other off. And this one yelled, and they both shut up and listened to this whole thing, and then they went right back to it again, just going off, tearing it again, like they just completely ignored. We don't even care what you said.
That was
And
a mom and two kids.
probably,
Guaranteed.
yeah. Maybe
Guaranteed.
dad saying, "Would you guys shut up or something?" And they didn't care. They just went right back at it.
Yeah.
And that was really, really cool. And I guess that's the other aspect of the device. I guess that is the key aspect of the device, really. It's not just the range and sensitivity of that invention. It's the ability, we can change the focal point so that I can pinpoint a person or an owl over a mile away. I can tell you what tree
Mm-hmm.
they're in at that distance. It's that fine of a pinpoint. So
That's
I guess that's the
amazing.
thing. There's no other audio device in the world that I'm aware of that can do that. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Truly, that's amazing because it's kind of it's hit or miss with audio, and it's
I
you
don't
can
like to
have
miss.
Yeah, I mean it is. But I tell people all the time, like when people are at Bigfoot gatherings, I'm like, you got to watch what you say. I'm
Oh yeah,
like, if you think you're alone, it doesn't matter. You have to watch what you say when you're on an expedition or at a
yeah.
Bigfoot event because everyone's got recorders. So
Oh, you
if
should see
you're
what you got one of these things in your hand. Oh my
exactly, you're
gosh.
not safe anywhere, so you
Not
might
only
as well
that,
just
when you're going through recordings, this is horrible, man. But when you're going through recordings, you hear if they're within the front 170 degrees, you hear every single movement of the human body of every single person in that camp.
oh
Period.
no.
If they're behind it, every course, every snore, fart, cough, whatever that comes across. But if you're in front of this thing, everything you can hear people's stomach growl. You can
Oh
hear
my
every
gosh.
single breath, and you're sitting there listening to audio files, or you've got it on a spectrum analyzer. You're trying to watch them go by, so you can go, and there's all this stuff, and you're like, "What is that? What is that?" And it's all bodily
Yeah.
functions.
Oh
Um,
my
yeah,
goodness.
it's bad. I mean, and then people try to whisper. No, no, you could be a football field away, and you think it whispers. If it's quiet around, yeah, no problem. Yeah, you're gonna
So
get
if
them.
you have one of these things, don't talk crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because it will get it.
It
Oh my
was.
goodness. Yeah,
Hey,
that's
Pyromedic,
a
how's it going? I see you're up there, Lori Dyer Hood. I got to say hi to some of your people here. This is
oh, of
awesome.
course.
Um,
Of
these
course.
are Pyromedic's awesome guy. Met him.
I love Pyro. I
Yeah,
got
he's
to meet him
good people.
at a symposium a year or two ago, and I saw this nice gentleman sitting at a table, and my son and we had a plate of walking tacos or something or fry bread, I don't remember, and I was like, "Can we sit with you?" He's like, "Oh, okay, sure," and he's talking to us. He's like, "By the way, I'm pyromedic," and I'm like, "Oh my god, like I know you." It was amazing.
Yeah, good to see him. Good to see the
He
familiar
knew who I
faces.
was, and he didn't say a word about it. Um, but yeah, we've got a really great chat tonight. I mean, everybody's got a lot to add and a lot of questions, so
Yeah, and if
it's
anybody
gonna
out
be
there is
great.
curious, I'm an open book. Don't be scared to ask. Like
Yeah,
literally, I'll ask. I'll answer any question I can, and that's pretty
yeah.
much anything. So
I think we had one more question I missed earlier. Doug Miller, he said, "Do you use canines at all? Seems like they're especially curious if there are hounds around."
yeah, probably because they want to eat them. No, no, some are really gentle to dogs, like George Harvey. His dog, well, the one they kept outside all the time, got so used to him, and one of the smaller, like 7 or 7.5, 8 foot subjects would bring it bones from the casino. They would actually break and tear the fences apart, go to the dumpsters, rip them apart, get the bones out, or eat whatever the food is. But they would bring bones to George's dog, and which is
hmm
really cool. And but they were kind of odd. Like one time they went out there and the doghouse was upside down, and the dog was in
Wow.
his doghouse, but the whole doghouse was upside down, so the thing had been
Oh my
playing.
gosh.
And
Wow.
once the dog got off and was actually with George's sister, and they were running a little UTV, an electric UTV, so it was pretty quiet. But she came right up on 3 members of the family unit by herself with the 2 dogs, and one of them whistled with flat teeth, and the dog ran up right to its feet, and it reached down and petted the dog. But to answer the question, absolutely not. Man, if you'd heard the stories that we've heard and responded to and investigated about them dealing with dogs, I've recorded. The only thing I can imagine was ripping a large dog like a German Shepherd or something in half. I mean, literally, it
hmm
was that bad. I didn't
Yeah.
even want to hear it again after I initially listened to it. It was so bad. I've never played it publicly. Um, it's just something doesn't need to be done. And then, but we've also responded to like people that have been walking their dogs, big dogs, and had them pick them up and run off with the dog while the dog's screaming and not be able to keep up with it. We've had a big lab in one area we work where there's a really big male, and it apparently reached out and just grabbed the lab with one hand, pulled it off the trail. There was a pit
hmm
bull with the lab. The pit took off running back right past the person and ran off. And he had to find his dog after, but it just bolted. There was no.
Yeah.
So working with dogs, knowing that as well, on the reputable searches that I'm aware of, good dogs, tracking dogs won't track. They pick up a scent, they stop. They're not stupid. They're not
Yeah.
going there. They're not going to go anywhere after that thing at all. And it's ruined dogs. So my buddy's Akita, they took into an area. Actually, it's the same area that lab was grabbed. But during daylight, he had his Akita up there on the mountain, and the god dog goes hiking in the hills with him all the time. And it smelled something locked up, got under their feet, and it wouldn't walk. They had to carry an Akita down off the mountain. He would walk after a while, and all it wanted to do is leave. And he said now when he tells us to get in the pickup, let's go somewhere, it doesn't even want to get in the pickup anymore. So
Yeah.
basically ruined him just smelling him. So.
Man, that's terrifying. Every time I go out, on an expedition and my dogs are with me, I don't really take them hiking on if it's a full Bigfoot weekend, but if I'm camping and just day hiking, I make sure to stop and pet them a lot and, kind of give across the vibe. This is a pet, it's not food.
Right.
Also, I have very non-threatening dogs, and I think that comes into it
Yeah,
also.
that could help.
I mean, you got a little fluffy bunny dog like I do. I think Bigfoot's like, that's not
Well,
even worth
I know
it.
this big male was taken out when we record him coming in and out. They had apparently had an infant, and he was coming in and out of this river system from the high mountains down this lower river system. We would record his progression all the time. The same when I got his footprint and woke up, and yeah, part of that was dealing with the dog once we heard, but we had a lot of reports on this basically his path that he used to go up and down, or this canyon. The people that lived along there were losing dogs, and what we realized after a while, it was all the barkers. Everything that would alert to his presence as he's traveling through, I think that would just piss him off over and over, and he would just eventually go take out the barkers so he could cruise and not have anybody alert to his presence.
I could see that. I did have a question earlier from Lori. She wanted to know how much the mic was, or if you just want to mention where you can purchase that.
And I'm in a little bit of a stall in between acquiring some components. I want to change from the manufacturers in China that I've got on the handles to America, and so we're in a little stall. You can get them at KryderExploration.com. The full kit is $640. That comes with a preamp, a mic. It's a 2-channel preamp and mixer, and a microphone and all that to goes with it. So, and it's also, they come with another mount that you can put a GoPro on, or a lot of people run thermal on top of the dish. So, your sound is what alerts you to a subject, and then your camera, your thermal's on board, so you can know where to point, whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, they're $640, and they're available at our website at KryderExploration.com. And like I said, if anyone does go over there and order one up, we're having a little stall. It'll probably take a couple of weeks or something to get things together. And a lot of that's because we're about to step them up for use outside the domestic market. And so, they're just basically going to be revamped a little and made better here pretty quick. So.
Awesome. I mean, I think it sounds like a pretty good deal for what you're getting.
Yeah, and there's it took 3 years to basically engineer and get them to the point they're at right now.
Yeah.
And it's all most of that is in build. There's not a lot of profit to really pull off in a sense. You'd think that not, but we have an aerospace company cut the frames and the retainers and stuff out of aerospace materials and blah 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 blah. So, it's a little off the top.
Yeah. Well, I know that she's been doing this for over 20 years. And so audio is where it's at for her. That's how she started. That's what she's into most. All these fancy new things come out, thermals and all of that. But audio is just where it is in her heart. Also, she's the world's nosiest person. So I'm sure that has an added bonus for her. She's going to yell at me after the show.
I love
it. Okay. So I want to ask real quick, because we're coming up on the end of the show there. I'm sure our listeners will want to know where they can go to see all of your work and support you. Can you share where they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I stated before, we have a website. It's KryderExploration.com. It's mainly just a list of our services, plus we list a bunch of Merc on there as well. And we got some fossils and other things for sale. You can also buy some of our equipment, like recorders or that parabolic unit. And then we're also on YouTube, and our channel name is KX space Kryder Exploration. You can usually find us there and in other locations by just Googling Kryder Exploration or my name, Robert Kryder. We're also on Facebook and various things. We have a couple of groups. One is Kryder Exploration. Another is KX Cryptid Hominid, Bigfoot, and more. And that's pretty easy to find. And then we also, we're on Twitter and all that stuff. We just don't normally use it very much. And if you'd like to support us, we're on Patreon.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I also put the YouTube link in the show notes to this show, so you guys can go check out his YouTube channel. He covers a lot more than just Bigfoot. He covers all kinds of things. So you guys can go get your fill of all the things that are odd and weird and well covered by Mr. Kryder here. All right. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. Seriously, You've been
Absolutely.
amazing. You've been a font of information. I love how you answered a few different questions, because we seem to, there's a stigma around certain topics, and I think you covered them very well. And so thank you for keeping it simple, but also, very eloquent. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Night Caller is one of my favorite places to be. I love the show. You guys are always awesome. No, I really do look forward to it. I really, really do. I know
Thank you.
I have to say this as well real quick before we get off. I know we're crunched for time, but
you're good.
There's several people that want me and need me to do their broadcasts and their shows. And I want to tell everyone out there that I'll do them. We're going to get in line. I know that we've had a past history, and Night Callers to me is a very important opportunity, not to belittle anyone else, but we'll get there. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you came back and that we could update everyone on one of my favorite things is because we've done, over the past 10 years, we've done over 300 shows, and we have some of those people come back, and some people, they'd be like, well, we already heard from them, and I'm like, in the 10 years that, let's say, Robert Kryder's been doing this, how have his views changed from that show to now? Because to me, the mark of a good researcher or adventurer or treasure hunter is not to stay the same over decades of time. It's to grow and change and learn and experience.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so today's show, I'm sure, is going to be vastly different from the show that we did with you prior. So I love
hopefully your numbers are good, man. That's what, and I want to spread info, and good numbers is the only way that occurs. So to me, everyone's looking for validation, which I guess a lot of individuals probably know I don't really care about validation.
Yeah,
and fame, whatnot. And to me, it's like, it's directly reflective of who's going to hear the message. We're doing the research so that people can find out the truth. And so the more people that know about it or find out that word, the more it feels justified and worth it. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. I don't push for a lot of big numbers. I don't do all that, but I do have what I feel are quality people on, and I have a platform where people can come and share their education, their information and experiences safely without being ridiculed. This comment, I'm just going to pop this up here for you. So you can put that one on your website in big quotes,
Well, it's funny everybody says that too, because Brad Pitt's one I haven't heard before, so that's an
I'm sure you get the Indiana Jones a lot, or stuff like that, but
sometimes. And then now his name slips me. The outdoorsman who hunts all the time, the old rock and roller.
Oh, Ted Nugent.
Yeah, Ted Nugent. Yeah. I get Ted Nugent pretty constant. Matter of fact, we did a show trailer for Animal Planet one time, and the production team who did it, when I got to see it, the whole thing was done to Ted Nugent, and they were calling me Ted Nugent, throughout the thing. So that was a kick.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Like, to me, I mean, I can see the Ted Nugent, but you're a little bit more positive than he is. I love the guy, but he is not a ray of sunshine. My goodness. Yeah. He tells it like it is, which is great. But goodness gracious. By the end of his shows, I just, okay, let's see. Angelina Jolie is speechless right now.
Greg Nahar's a crack up already, I could tell. You'd be a fun guy to have around the fire, man, I'll tell you what.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He is one of my treasured listeners, that I enjoy his comments, because he tells it from the heart, and he tells it from the heart, and he's very complimentary but also real, which I very much appreciate. Mm-hmm. He doesn't hold back for fear of looking dumb or cheesy or anything like that, so I appreciate it. And I love all my listeners. They're all amazing. I have moderators over here in the chat. They honestly don't have anything to do, because my listeners are just great. They don't troll. They're respectful of guests. So
yeah, and thank you, everyone. I appreciate you guys and mods for hanging out and doing the work too, man. It's really great, because I know it takes a lot to put these things on. So
yeah, it's a lot, but it's so worth it, man, because I get people like you on, and I learn something from every single guest, and it just, my research is important to me, and I still go research, but this podcast is important to me because I'm learning, I'm experiencing, and that's why 346 shows. We started the North American Bigfoot Researcher was a series that we started back in the day. We just wanted to have a limited series of researchers because everybody was doing witnesses and all this, and we were like, we want to talk to researchers. We want to talk to people like us that are out there on the ground in the field. And it's been 346 episodes now. There's just so many researchers and so many great people to talk to. We just kept going with it. And that's a lot of knowledge out there. So
you guys are blessed to have just that base of knowledge to make comparative analysis. You know, association is a big thing in the mind. And if you don't have this or that to associate with, it's called recondite. So the brain doesn't even know how to comprehend some things. That's what causes a lot of illusions or delusions and things like that. There's actually just the brain not being able to have anything to compare with. So it's great. You mean it's a blessing for you. That's awesome because you have a huge information base just to weigh things against. So that's great.
I do.
Along with people, how many? That's 300 and something people too, right? So
yeah, over 300 people, because we've had a few repeats, but that's over 300 people that to me have not just, because everyone's like, I got a comment the other day, I can't believe you don't interview witnesses. And I'm like, first of all, everybody interviews witnesses. So I'm going to be different because I'm just different. I love being different. But also, to me, researchers are witnesses. But they're witnesses who used it to motivate them to do something about it.
Right.
Go find out what they saw. Go find out why this thing is this thing and get as much information as they can. So, I mean, to me, that's a step up from the witness encounters.
Right.
Anyway, so it's been an amazing experience to have this many amazing researchers on and learn the things that I've learned. I have the hardcore scientific researchers, investigators, whatever you want to call them. And then I have the ones who are more paranormal minded, that are more woo or whatever.
Sure.
Last time I had Ron Moorhead on last week, and he was, he's changed so much from the first time I had him on to now. He published Quantum Bigfoot. And so it's just, I love having all these different viewpoints on it. It's amazing. It's a lot to learn from. And appeals to a lot of different people, I'll say.
Oh, I know. Well, it crosses a lot of boundaries, man. This is one of those bridge deals, which is kind of one of the reasons we enjoyed working on it. So
absolutely.
Doing high-end treasure recovery left a pretty bad taste a couple times. There's nothing pretty about that whole deal usually, and it's not as glorious as what people think. And
I'm sure.
I kind of stepped out of that and drove toward this. It was a refreshment to me to do it anyway, because I didn't feel like, well, what are you going to take out of me for this? You can't use me, abuse me, cheat me, steal, whatever. This is my deal. Of course, I guess there's the bad apples, and we've run the top to the bottom. So.
Oh yeah.
Which
there's
some whatever.
There's some people in this community that it's rough. Oh, yeah. But then you find the ones, the good ones. Someone earlier said, Rob is one of the good guys, and to have where you're, like you specifically, you're impacting people's lives by sharing your experiences and your education. And that's a big deal. And to have honest people out there doing honest things, trying to solve this phenomena or give more information on it,
Yeah. Well, I enjoy doing things the hard way. And so just was kind of blessed to be prepped and primed to do it. So glad I could get some answers for people who can't get it themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on tonight. It's been an amazing show, and I can't wait to see where you go next. And before we go off air, do you have anything coming up? Any big projects, conferences, anything like that?
There'll be a couple. There's going to be a conference next year in 2024. Actually two of them. We're going to do another one in Talihina, Oklahoma, another Kiamichi Mountains Bigfoot conference. The first one we did actually worked out really, really well. We did it on a shoestring. We didn't go over the board, but man, the people we had, it really was an amazing, informative event. And then I'm going to be doing another one in Kansas, and I don't even have the name of that one in front of me yet. It was early on I found, and I believe like they're both around in March. March or May, something like that. So just keep watch, and you'll get that out there. And then we've always got something on the horn. So and then looks like there's rumor in the air that I might be doing Phenomicon up September. So
okay, awesome. Yeah, there's a bunch of great conferences. I will say now, And so you guys, it sounds like right now there's those, but I've seen your name a lot on different rosters, so I'm sure that your scorecard fills up pretty quickly. So
Yeah, it goes round and round.
yeah,
That's why I say I feel kind of bad because with everything, I started working as a mechanic. Okay, again, so it's like a fallback. That or a chef is my fallback jobs, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
usually don't tell people I can cook, and I don't tell them I know how to work on cars because that's the first
Oh,
thing they're gonna have to do:
yeah,
cook for me and fix my car.
yeah, yeah.
So, but it has been busy this whole summer. I barely got a chance to do a lot. I think this Saturday, and I might try to live stream some of it. I'm gonna go, and potentially I'm gonna go if everything works out. Go visit with the family unit that I hung so much time with
Awesome.
and go in there and I'll try to do that live. If I can get a signal out of there, then it can be pretty cool. So visually, usually
Right.
it stinks, but we've had some neat stuff happen. So, but
Oh,
anyway,
that's
to
awesome.
hold you too long, but thank you again,
No,
Lauren, for
you're
having me
good. You're
on. So,
good. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
mhm.
And you guys go check out all of his social media, his website, everything that he mentioned, his Facebook groups where you guys can join in and ask him questions. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and stay safe, be kind, and I will see you next time. All right. And we're off air. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were phenomenal, and it was great to have you back on. I haven't I've seen you over the years and I've kept up with all that you've done, but obviously we haven't had a chance to chat. So it's been really great to hear from you and to interview you myself because I'm pretty sure last time it was my mom that interviewed you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. And you know,
yeah,
and I really do feel that way about night callers. I've enjoyed doing it. You guys were always great both times. You have a good crowd.
yeah,
You have a really good demographic that you touch base with. So,
yeah,
and I just
yeah.
appreciate it.
We
So,
got some good peoples. So you keep up the good work. Keep doing all the amazing things you're doing. I'm serious. Like it. I know it can be rough out there. Sometimes it can feel like a very thankless job, and it can feel like you're throwing yourself against a wall
hmm,
with the different people that you have to come in contact with. So thank you for what you do.
absolutely. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
great. Thank you, Lauren.
All right. Thank you. You have a great night.
You too. Bye
All
now.
right. Bye. Where
Okay, well, I think everyone can still hear me. I'm trying to bring my camera back up here. Close this. It might let me. So, thanks for everybody being here this evening. Come on, camera. There we go. I just want to thank everybody for showing up and hanging out. Now, I didn't get to simulcast this live today, so we're going to be putting this right on YouTube right now. I'll throw a title screen on it. I'll throw an ending screen, and we'll get this uploaded. We'll do it as a live premiere. So this will be great. So anyway, thanks everybody for showing up. It's been a really great little show with Lauren and them. They're great people to work with. Night Callers Radio is always kind of a refreshing interview. And like I said to her, they got a great crowd. And I know we got the greatest crowd there is. I know everybody, all you KX followers are the shit. So thank you very much for showing up. Thanks for hanging out with us. And I'll see you again soon.